Some of the first videos I ever made for this channel were some sloppy, unscripted Succession reviews during the last season's run, and goddamn did I love that show. Among the many fantastic cast members on that series, there was Kieran Culkin, whose sharp wit and impressive range have had me enthralled for a good long time now, and I'm not ashamed to admit that he was practically the only reason I saw a real pain. Well, that and Jesse Eisenberg, who I hugely enjoyed in The Social Network, but really, I knew next to nothing about this movie when I bought tickets, just that Eisenberg and Culkin were cousins on a trip. What I did not expect was to get slammed with a completely engrossing and soft experience that went straight into my top 3 of the year. Everything from family to trauma to depression to grief is cleanly depicted here in a way that feels personal and detailed. This is likely due to the fact that it is both directed and inspired by Jesse Eisenberg, who drew on his family's history for the film and was able to take full creative control to do so. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I have to throw out the spoiler warning, so here it is. Now we can really get started on the nuances of this wonderful movie. Definitely the most notable thing about this movie is the performances. I would shout out Will Sharp and Kurt Edgelon from the supporting cast, but Jesse Eisenberg and especially Kieran Culkin just own this movie. Benji's character was clearly written to be more exciting than David, since David is at least partially meant to be the audience perspective character, but Kieran Culkin really does something special with him to add to the already expressive writing. He always has this look in his eyes as if he's holding something inside, and he absolutely nails it whenever Benji can't hold back an issue he's having, ad-libbing and stuttering until he just explodes with passion. His physicality is also so jumpy, which is an aspect of Kieran's acting that could not get enough praise. On the other hand, David is very clearly reserved, but Jesse Eisenberg totally knows his character. The fear David holds of trying something unexpected is palpable, and when he gets emotional, he crashes just as hard as Benji. His monologue at the dinner table clearly resembles Benji's personality and how he weaves his emotions and seems to shrink into his own world. David's behavior overall signifies one of the major themes of the film, which is, of course, depression. David himself struggles with what I believe is a more typical type of depression than Benji's, but they are both nonetheless hurting. David takes pills for his OCD and clearly gets anxious easily. He's also notably uncool, which seems to be something that weighed on him in his childhood, so he's become resolved to the way that he is supposed to live. He has a wife and a kid, and he works a boring-ass job, and he wonders why that isn't working for him. David generally does not understand himself and his wants, as he is too afraid to realize himself with some big emotional journey, which ends up being exactly what he is dragged into. Benji, however, understands himself almost too much. What he doesn't understand is the world. And I'm not saying that to say that he doesn't know how the world works, more that he doesn't get why people can settle for that. Benji is almost like a transcendentalist of old. He's someone who could live comfortably in a remote swamp off of nuts and berries. Still though, he is a people person. He is very excitable and open about himself. The only reason he seems to not have many friends is because people don't think the way he does, and this frustrates him too much for him to settle for normies. The person who did think like him was his grandma, and now she's gone, which is why they're doing this trip in the first place. No wonder Benji gets more emotional during the worst of the tour when he sees where his grandmother suffered and wonders how people can move on when a woman so incredible was subject to these horrors. I don't exactly know how to speak on the Jewish inspiration for this movie because I'm both not Jewish and not familiar with the culture, but I think I can at least see that Benji's free spirit is something he shared with his grandmother, and I think the idea of that spirit being enclosed in a camp where it is entirely controlled by men with guns is what makes the viewing experiences of the camps so taxing for Benji in comparison to the rest of the tourists. Accompanying all of this drama is some very artful cinematography, which could possibly come off as too exact and fancy for a movie that is practically about sacrificing luxury, but I think it's the colors that clinch it. The blue tones especially are so soothing in a way that gives the movie a lot of genuinity. It feels as if the movie itself is finding the joy and the beauty in the overlooked details in the way that Benji's character encourages. In the same way, the music, which is pretty much entirely classical, could come off as lavish rich people shit, which Benji literally calls it out for being at one point, but I don't think so. Really what the music strikes me as is calming, almost like running river water. It is the type of music that I could lie by a pond while listening to, which is, again, exactly the type of thing Benji would encourage. And even still, the classical piano is used for the more intense scenes, where it becomes dramatically distressing, such as when David rushes back to the hotel in a fit after Benji gets confrontational at dinner. It's adaptable and more fitting than it originally struck me to be. Hats off to Jesse Eisenberg. The man clearly had a very detailed and passionate picture in his mind that he put on the screen with precision. Returning to Benji and David, I want to end off on their relationship to each other, since that is a whole new layer to their characters. Benji's perspective on David is actually pretty simple. He wants him to break out of his shell. Benji spends the entire movie attempting to get David to live life on the edge, or at the very least, try something new, sometimes even forcing him into those situations. He says that David used to be so much more ambitious, something which I only half believe, since I do feel as if David was still being dragged along by Benji even in his early years. Really what I think Benji is trying to do is recapture his grandmother. That's why he points out how nice David's feet are and how much they look like their grandma's, a scene which actually happens and lasts way longer than you would think. He wants someone else who will actually live life the way that he does, because he needs a replacement for his previous go-to. However, the impact that feet scene would have on David is something I don't think Benji expected, because David's insecurities have evolved into envy. Envy of his cousin and his layabout, free personality. Benji is effortlessly cool, while David can't even get a word in. He's completely unable to stand up for himself, even against the oblivious Benji. He loves his cousin, sure, but he seems like such an unattainable person, and David's crushed watching Benji hurt because it makes him feel like even perfection can break. When Benji tells him that he's just like his grandmother, he starts to wonder why he's not like Benji. He feels unworthy of his family, and that only grows when Benji flaunts himself in front of their tour group. In the end, their relationship gets one more beat when David asks Benji to come over for dinner. While Benji does reject the offer, it's clear that he's made an impact, and he knows that. David did something unexpected. Even if it was small, he was able to muster up the courage to ask this godlike figure if he wants to hang out. That means it's working, and that this isn't the end of their relationship. The impressions these two characters make on each other are so important on both sides, and goddammit, I love this movie. I love it, and I had a fantastic time. This is just the type of movie that doesn't come around often, being one that is completely full of heart. Jesse Eisenberg has made a grade A passion project, with the same soul and nostalgia that was instilled in The Holdovers last year, and I can't decide which of the two movies is better. I think I'm leaning towards this one. A weird fact about this movie is that Kieran Culkin himself is not Jewish. Eisenberg is, as is obvious by his name, let's be real, but Culkin is not. On that detail, Eisenberg said that he's thought about it a lot, and he doesn't seem to regret his choice because of how well Kieran was able to reflect his own experiences through his performance. And you know what? If he thinks that the man did it justice, then that's the most important opinion. The movie worked like a charm, earning a 9 out of 10 for me. I'd be happy to see more like it. I'll be keeping one eye open for Jesse Eisenberg's directorial credits. The other eye was already on Kieran Culkin, but let me tell you, it'll definitely be staying there. Bye now.